Hello and welcome to All Stats Aren't We, a podcast in which Leeds fans cast their combined eye over goings on Ellen Road, giving scrutiny to underlying statistics and tactical puttings at work at Leeds United. I'm Adam Elliott, the Pascal Strouk mistake of the podcast. Oh dear, beautiful. And I'm joined today by the Brendan Aronson missed chance of the podcast. Just like this man, he's an effing donkey. It's Martin Riley. Martin, donkey, how are you?
I'm not doing too badly, thank you very much, Adam. You really gave the underlying statistics some really good welly in that intro. I enjoyed it.
I felt a bit rusty, been a few weeks since I hosted, and I thought I was stumbling my way through it, so I was like, I need to pick myself up here. That's all.
Just give it a bit of welly. Yeah, it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. But yeah, I'm good. I've had an unusual tea for a pod now, actually one where I've actually prepped. I've had a full roast dinner with pigs in blankets, honeyed carrots, roast chicken, and all on some cranberry sauce thrown on there because why not? It was good.
Sounds amazing on a Monday. Yes. Feels like a Dan thing. That Dan's said
he does
having a roast on a Monday a few times this season when he's been on. I myself had an Adam meal, so I'll leave it at that. For any long-term listeners, they'll know exactly what that means. But doing really well despite what happened yesterday, because the best thing in the world happened, which is that the All Stats Aren't We Discord, which you can find if you subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. We'll give you a link. But the All Stats Aren't We Discord is always the place to be anyway, but it's even more so now that we've got the main character of the Discord back in Sycross. So I'm just happy about that and nothing else, even though I was speaking to him in private outside of the Discord while he wasn't in there. But he's back now, so it's good for everyone else. So very pleased about that. We did lose to Chelsea, and we'll talk about that. Even though football's not real football, it feels like it's probably got a few interesting enough things to discuss tactically and in terms of players and in terms of Farker because of what he said as well after the game. So we will do all of that. Anything on news you've written here? And I don't know if you've got something to say about this because you put it. Leeds are effing massive. I don't know what that means.
That's been there about 3 weeks. I just forgot.
Okay, well, we can just say it.
Well, we are, so it's always true. It's always.
I honestly thought you might have put it in there. You haven't, but I thought you might have put it in there because we were the ones that sold out our allocation at Wembley, and Man City didn't, and Chelsea only just did. I think it took them a while. We were really quick to it.
I'm pretty certain we could have sold out the full stadium. Never mind our.
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah,
I think me and you would have been there if we could, but it is what it is. I was quoted a price of a ticket that was far beyond something I was about to pay, so I didn't do it in the end. But yeah, well, this is going to be a double-header podcast today. We've done a few of these this season. This might be one of the last ones. It probably is the last one, isn't it? The rest of them should be singles. But we have Burnley on Friday. But first of all, we'll obviously start with that Chelsea game on Sunday in the FA Cup semi-final. So yeah, we'll do that first. Barnsley, you've written down, not Burnley. You've been calling them for a while as well. They are Buns. But we'll start, as always, with the stats on Chelsea. Do you want to just take us through them quickly? Because I need to shut my door because my cat, who is fine, has just opened it and I need to close it.
Yeah, of course. So Chelsea had the most of the ball in the game, 54% to our 46%, although that splits quite a lot over the first and second half. Chelsea had 0.38 expected goals. We had 0.84, 8 shots to Chelsea to our 10. And according to FotMob, they have Chelsea had 2 big chances and we had 2 big chances, and I hate FotMob's determination of what a big chance is, because Chelsea's 2 highest XG chances was the goal that was scored, which was 0.15. So yeah, fair enough. You can give that as a big chance if you like, but then the next biggest one after that was 0.08. They cannot be determining that as a big chance. I'm sorry, I don't like it. But anyway, those are the stats from the game.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe FotMob breaks for cup football because it's not real football. Maybe that's all it
could be, yeah.
Right, anyway, we'll get into the interrogation then. Let's talk about the first half. Obviously, that's a good place to start. What do you think the game plan was? What did you think to that? And what do you think actually went wrong? Because we did feel quite penned in.
So I think the biggest thing that for me that went wrong the game plan initially, I think, was to try to sit back a bit and absorb pressure and hit them in counter-attack. Also trying some high-pressing moments to try to win turnovers further up the pitch. But I think Chelsea did something which we weren't prepared for, which was to go long over the press. And they did that quite frequently as soon as they were in even a bit of trouble. They got it back to Sanchez, and Sanchez yeeted it forward to whoever. And then from those moments, we weren't winning the second balls. And sometimes even when we won the first ball and controlled it, like the goal, a mistake happened, and then that caused a goal. I don't think, as terms of plans, I don't think it was an awful idea to try to hit them in transition and try to win those turnovers, because it's kind of what led to some good moments in some of the games against Chelsea this season. But I don't think it was executed very well. And if you wanted to get a forward press going at times like that, you probably need more men in the midfield areas, which left it feeling a bit disconnected, did the pressing part of it. Mm-hmm. And it led to some bad situations at which we weren't able to really manoeuvre out of. Obviously, we'll talk about the second half and what changed then, but in terms of the first half, that was, for me, what went wrong. It was as simple as Chelsea going long over our press. In my opinion, that caused a big shift in the way that we were looking to do things, and because we weren't expecting that, we probably weren't prepared for the second ball winning. But yeah, it wasn't a great plan. But Chelsea also, even though it's a small detail, it was one which was quite effective in neutralising what we wanted to do.
I've not got loads and loads to say, but there's just a few other things. Obviously, it goes without saying that in and out of possession and where your players are positioned can go hand in hand. But you talking about how it was quite disconnected in certain areas. And one of them, which I've noticed in other games, but like I definitely noticed it here, is when we did try to go long to Calvert-Lewin, quite often midfielders are too deep because of where they were pressing and where we were instructed to be. Or one of them would be further up, but the other one would be really deep. So there was a huge gap between them, and there's just holes in the team. And if Calvert-Lewin wins that first, contact or not, the players just weren't always positioned well to kind of get onto those second balls and latch onto them. It was a real frustration here when we had to do that. The other problem I noticed, and it was probably the similar one to the Bournemouth first half as well, was, and me and Hossie went over this on the Bournemouth pod, the disconnect between centre-backs and midfielders, in the sense that we probably this season have got this wrong and got it right sometimes, but sometimes the centre-backs are instructed to kind of play deep and to not follow one of their players around, or to advance into midfield areas if they need to, and other times they've been asked to do that. Here, we decided the centre-backs to drop quite deep and not step out onto Enzo Fernandez. And it meant that he ended up having a really good half. He also ghosted him for the goal, but that's kind of a separate point. And so just I think the kind of spine of the team at centre-back and midfield, it was just quite disconnected in and out of possession, and it didn't look great. There were other things as well to kind of note. I think in wing-back areas, it's been quite easy to pin in the last few games. I can understand maybe a bit about that is quality of opposition. The wing backs against Bournemouth, I thought really struggled. They were isolated quite a lot, and here they struggled a fair bit, not quite as much, but it just wasn't the kind of plan that worked. Is the best way I can say it. So I'm just going to leave it there. What would you have preferred to have seen from the off in this one then? Not in the second half, but from the start, what do you think Farke should have done slightly differently?
I think even just having that extra body in midfield would
have made a massive difference.
Would have helped. I mean, I can understand why he's looking to go with this sort of shape, but I think maybe Chelsea did think things a bit differently to what he was expecting them to, and that kind of threw a spanner in the works. But I will give him credit for making the change when he did at half-time, because that isn't often something which we've seen from him. So, yeah, that is the change. It's pretty as much as simple as that. Maybe some different personnel could have helped things out in there. I think maybe having Longstaff in over Aronson could have helped with the more direct game. If we would have kept him close by to Calvert-Lewin, a bit more physicality and winning those second balls, that could have helped. But outside of individual changes and the shift to a 4-2-3-1 rather than the 3-4-3, that was mainly it for me.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. The thing that I would say, if we were sticking in that shape, is something I spoke about a second ago, which is maybe one of your centre-backs needs to follow them into midfield if you are overloaded in that area. So that would have been probably James Justin in this instance, needed to pick up Enzo Fernandez. He didn't on the goal either, so it was probably his man in the game that he should have picked out. That would have helped a lot.
Maybe halfway through the first half, Perry should have gone down injured, and would have had an opportunity for a drinks break and get some instructions over. That's
There's a lot of discourse about that.
Yeah.
I'm really unsure about how to fix that, other than the only thing that I can think of is only maybe the captains, or either the captains or no one is allowed to go over to the touchline during that. And if it's no one, if they do, the referee just has to book them. It has to be that simple. It has to be quite a harsh punishment. They get booked. They're not allowed to. If they need water, they can have it launched at them from like 20 yards away. They can have it thrown at them. Maybe that's not the safest thing for players, but like, they shouldn't be going over there just to get instructions from managers. It is an unfair advantage. And that clip of Sanchez from behind the net, Adarabioyo, I think it is, turns around and just goes, go down, go down. It's like, bloody hell, this shouldn't be allowed to stand, but it does. But yeah, I think Justin was probably the main one that I would say probably needed to do a bit more of a job on Fernandes. I'm not fully blaming him, because I think it's an instruction thing as to why he didn't, but I think that would have made sense out of possession and would have helped things. The other thing that Chelsea did quite well in the first half, and our friend of the pod, Jack, pointed this out, and quite a few teams are quite good at this season because they've got good players in build-up phases. They've got good technical players that can get themselves out of trouble. Teams are pretty happy to play it around the back. It sounds simple, but like as soon as Leeds jump forward and look quite aggressive in the press, and you're thinking, oh, you've got like a 4-on-4 here in the press, and we've got them in a corner. Chelsea, were happy to let that happen. And then, like you said, it left tons of space behind them, and then they'd play a couple of passes and bypass that, and they've gone a bit longer. But yeah, it's worked for them, and we just didn't have any answers to that. So I think we were stuck between a couple of different styles here, where we did some high pressing stuff, and then we did some like more passive stuff, like with the centre backs, and it just didn't feel coordinated. And then we were also light in midfield. There just weren't enough players there to deal with whether they have Caicedo and Fernandes, £200 million footballers. Is a lot of an ask for Ampadu and Tanaka, who I actually think did both okay in the game, but it wasn't any more than that, really, was it? So yeah, this is the last thing that I'll say on this before we get to the second half. Is I think Farke, and a few people have mentioned this, like after the game, straight away he's saying the players look nervous, they froze. Quite a few fans that were both at the ground and watching on TV, I've seen saying that kind of thing as well. And maybe there is a part of that. Of course, it's a big occasion. I don't disagree. You can't fully just say that it's all on the players and they did it all wrong. Like, I think some instructions were still clearly quite poor, and Farke still has to take some of the blame on himself for that and some accountability, and he doesn't often do that. So when fans have said it's just the players, I don't agree. And when fans have said it's just Farke, I don't agree. And there is a middle ground. I also think we've noticed this season as a whole that we've had times when we've done really well in a game and suddenly it's all on Farke. And then other times when we've done quite poorly in a game and suddenly it's all on the players. And again, like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it's a middle ground, and there's two noisy sides of the debate each time on Twitter, and it's not very fair. Not just Twitter, probably every social media, really. So yeah, that frustrated me a bit, and I'm sure we might talk about that a bit later on, because I think you've got something to say on it as well. Anyway, we'll start with the second half now. We obviously saw quite a lot of changes. BL was taken off for Rodon, and Justin was taken off for Anton Stack. Not to everyone's great pleasure, because Bogle wasn't having the best of halves. Pascal Struijk had a difficult half. I could see why he kept Struijk on, personally, because he's left-footed, and he's never going to play BL at left centre-back anymore after a period of the start of the season when he did that, and it didn't look very good. And he's not going to play BL and Struijk as a centre-back pairing very often, because you have a little bit of a lack of pace. Maybe you'd get away with that against some teams, but not Chelsea. So that's why those changes were made. We obviously saw our possession then shift from only 35% in the first half, Martin, and that went all the way up to 57%. Do you think that was down to just the changes? And how do you feel that went as well?
So I think the possession shift is a combination of that, but also I do think that Chelsea did sit back a little bit more and weren't as aggressive in the second half. It was something which I think McFarlane spoke about in his post-match press conference, was that their intensity dropped lower than they knew they couldn't keep it up for the full game. So in the second half, we were able to get our foot on the ball a bit more, but we didn't really create much in terms of chances outside of Calvert-Lewin's opportunity. I don't think it was for lack of trying. We got some good deliveries into the box, especially Okafor got some nice balls in there, but I just don't think the players attacking the right areas. That especially it seemed like a lot of the balls would go into the far post area, and we didn't really have anyone attacking that space, which is a missed opportunity considering how many balls do end up going into that kind of area. I think we need to get someone attacking that far post area, whether that is one of the midfielders or if it's Bogle attacking it. Someone needs to get there so we can try to get more bodies in the box, especially when we're chasing the game and we're looking to get back into it, and that just wasn't really happening. It started happening more towards the end of the game, but I think when Okafor came off, the deliveries into the box really did suffer at that point, and Gnonto struggled to get into the game, I felt, and yeah, after the changes, they end up diverting from, he changed to a 4-2-3-1 at half time, and then he did the usual chuck on all the attackers approach, and then it ended up being pretty much a back three, I think, towards the end. But yeah, it wasn't amazing, and it also wasn't terrible. Just it was a close game, and we just came out on the wrong end of a close game. All it takes is Aronson to score his chance that he had. Well, then we score first, and who knows how the rest of the game pans out.
So funny that is. If you've seen, there's a parallel to Adam Armstrong goal for Southampton.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same position. It's exactly the same.
Yep.
And Armstrong put it in, and Aronson didn't. And those can be the margins as well sometimes.
No, exactly. And just that football, especially in tight games like this, it is very a low margin affair. And the two
big moments, which is why Aronson's had a bit of stick. Strauch's had a bit of stick.
Yep.
Because he gets his feet in a mess. It's not pretty. It's probably his worst moment since Newcastle away. It's been a long time.
It has, yeah.
Having said that, being brutally honest, having watched it back, I don't think his moment is great, of course, but I actually think James Justin's marking on Enzo Fernandez is even worse. I don't know how he loses him so easily. And I think he maybe is panicked that we've lost the ball and he's ball watching and he's not focused on what he should be doing. And
to be fair, it was good movement from Enzo, I think.
It was, but I think he could have done better there. But anyway, yeah, the other thing to say about the second half for me that I don't like is instruction of midfielder. I don't, again, think this is a player doing something off the cuff thing. Quite often we see the centre-back split and the midfielder drops in between them to receive the ball. And what you end up having is a 3, like you said. But the whole Chelsea team is on the halfway line or deeper. So that extra player that we put out back there for build-up is completely redundant. And you might as well push a player up, one of the 3, to occupy a player of Chelsea. And we didn't do that very often. And quite often the whole game's then in front of the Chelsea team because you've got Ampadu in between Rodon and Strauch. And it's like, we don't need this. And we saw that in the Championship quite a bit, but it was fine because we usually had a lead and we were able to knock it between us to keep it and retain possession.
Triangle of death.
It is just triangle of death stuff. And it wasn't too bad, like in the sense that, because quite often they'd just like ping it out to one of the wingers or wing backs, or they'd ping it up to Calvert-Lewin, but it just doesn't make sense for that extra player. You don't need it. It's completely redundant. So I didn't enjoy that, and that's still a problem. Again, I can't foresee like Ampadu thinking that that's worthwhile him doing. I think he's asked to do that. He's tasked with building up. It's just like, well, you don't need to be there, mate. Just push up onto like one of their midfielders and make it a bit more difficult for them to press Strauch or something, occupy one of their players. Anyway, don't really have anything else to say. I agree with you. Last thing it will be is like, I thought it was an okay performance. I've seen people talking about this as one of our worst performances of the season. If you're talking about a big game, in that context, it's quite bad. But like as a general performance for Leeds this season, it was just very average, very okay. And sometimes it can be that. It doesn't have to be, wow, that was really good, or wow, that was really bad. We played twice against Arsenal and got absolutely thumped. They were worse than this. We just weren't quite there in attack, like you said. Probably the wrong players attacking the ball in the wrong areas. Some of the crossing wasn't great, to be fair. Like Goodmanson was finding good positions and just digging out crosses that went not even into the box. They were kind of along the edge of the 18-yard line. So he probably needed to get a couple more yards up the pitch to cross the ball in. Stuff like that can be maybe help, but is what it is. Sid Cross asked, in the last 2 games, Farke has been much more proactive with his substitutions. It is as simple as losing game states forcing him to do this, or is it a bit of sensible squad management too? I personally think on evidence of the last few games, especially, but like on evidence of Farke over the season, that he regularly does this when the game state is against him. And that's when we see him be the most active with his subs. So I don't think it's just a squad management issue. Although I do think he would like to start Stack as soon as possible. I don't think it was that. I think it was just, we're losing here. I need to change something. We know the back four can work. Get us a bit more territory, get us up the pitch, occupy their players in better areas by having overloads out wide. Maybe that'll work. And, we did get some joy from it. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I just think maybe he used it as an opportunity to get the players that he trusts into the squad a bit more. And I don't think he's ever likely to make those sort of changes when it is a positive game state, or because we've seen it too often. All these, like Sigros says, it is a losing game state, which is forced him to make these changes. And he generally does make lots of changes when we are behind, but when we're ahead and the game is sort of shifting, he doesn't do the same. So I would probably say it's just the losing game state that's forced him to do that. So I wouldn't hold out too much hope that his squad management is getting better. I think it's just individual game states causing it.
Yeah. Should we just end this bit, really, which is move on to standout players who wasn't great? Look, I'll do the Strauch bit for a second. He probably was one of our worst players. I thought he grew into the game. I thought his second half was absolutely fine for the most part, other than I think there were two things you can say about him. The mistake on the goal, yes, and then the João Pedro, who had a really good game for Chelsea despite not scoring. I think Pedro had him turned a few times, and that meant he had to foul him a few too many times and eventually picked up the yellow. Stat, not great, but not the end of the world. People are talking about it as some kind of like awful disaster class. It was poor, but not dreadful. I think a lot of players were just, like I said, with the performance, very average, not terrible, not great. They did a few good things, a few bad things. Overall, just okay. There weren't many, to me anyway, that stood out in a significant way. Anyone really stand out to you?
I think the main one I would say is probably Okafor. He was the main one who was trying to make things happen, but even then he didn't make the right decisions in those moments. Like inside the first minute, he could have played in Calvert-Lewin, and he had another pretty much identical moment, but that time he went for a shot. So he was the main one who was driving things forward, but he also wasn't making the right decisions around the box. So there isn't really anyone I'd say who would be man of the match, but there also wasn't anyone who was as terrible as what I've seen made out on socials. Like I've seen people saying that we should be replacing nearly all the squad. Like, I'll just skip to this question because it's part of what I was wanting to talk about here anyway. On socials, I've seen people mention that we should be replacing Aronson, Strauch. Fair enough, 2 mistakes in this game. Biol, Ampadu, Tanaka, Goodmanson, Bogle, Calvert-Lewin, Okafor. I've literally seen all of those on socials in the past 24 hours. And I know that's social media and it's not representative of the total fan base, but I just want to say those sort of fans are fickle and reactionary, and you just need to pull your head out of your ass, really, because we're a side who's just come up from the Championship. We will have players who have mistakes in them. Even top-level players have mistakes in them. You saw some of Chelsea's players who cost lots more than our players making mistakes in this game. Our chance from Aronson came from 2 of their players making mistakes in a build-up moment. And if they can do it, our players can do it too. Just they took advantage of the mistake that we made, and we weren't able to take advantage of the mistake they made. That's the difference in squad quality there. But I just think that you live on a different planet if you don't think these sort of games are going to happen where players are going to make mistakes. But overall, it wasn't as bad as what people are making out this game to be. It's not like we was hammered. It was a very close game. It could have gone either way, which, yeah, it's one of those cup football games, and one of the many reasons why we don't cover them, because they're rank, generally.
I think when you add the context for our season in that we're a newly promoted club, and you actually add that in as the underlying factor here, we've ended up with, frankly, a pretty remarkable squad. for two reasons. First of all, the players who've actually been able to carry over from the Championship, who are good enough. Like, I understand some fans are a bit older and maybe have seen better generations of Leeds team than I have. I'm not even in my 30s yet. I've not seen the glory days of even in the Premier League era when it was in the early 2000s. I've definitely not seen the 1992 team that won the league, and a few years after that, there was some pretty good players. I certainly wasn't around for the 1970s and late 60s of Don Revie, so I'm kind of enjoying this as one of the best lead squads I've ever seen. So maybe people are going to call me reactionary the other way for saying this, but I think when you say that Bogle, Ampadu, Roden, Strauch, even Tanaka to an extent, I might be missing someone else. Darlow, to be fair, like all of those players have had minimum decent seasons, some of them quite a lot more than that. As a first season team that have come up, that's amazing. And players who brought in have nearly all hit the ground running, apart from a couple. Obviously, Seb Bornau has not played much, and Lucas Perry, we don't need to talk about too much. So it just leaves you with this squad that is actually a lot better than fans rate it. I think it's still probably bottom 5 in the league. I'm not going to dispute that. But I agree with you that it's fickle and reactionary to just want everyone out. We've lost 5 of 25 games in all competitions with this team. And another thing, like, ask yourself, of all the players we've signed under the 49ers, and even players we had before then, how many of them actually decreased in value over the last few years? Nearly all of them will have increased. Even someone like bloody Matteo Joseph, who, well, maybe he's a bad example because he's done his ACL now, but he was bought for like maybe £1 million, and now he's probably worth a heck of a lot more. And then you go to like your obvious ones like Ampadu, who was bought for about 7 million, maybe rising to a little bit more with add-ons. He'd be a £20 million midfielder, even more maybe, if we were to sell him. Tanaka, £3 million. Think about how much you'd get for him now. Like, all of these players are worth a lot more, which is credit to Farke. It's also credit to the recruitment team for finding value. So when people talk about how bad our squad is, I'm just like, I can never get behind it. It just doesn't make sense to me. You can say, yeah, there's some holes in it. But we left Facundo Buonanotte out of the matchday squad for this game. Me and Halsey went on a big rant about how he should get involved, and we were hoping that he would. And then he wasn't even involved at all against Chelsea because I thought he might have been
massive missed opportunity against Chelsea.
It would have been great.
Causing problems. Imagine him bringing him off the bench. That would have been great.
It would have been great. I think it would have got both sets of fans right up for it as well. Like, it would have created a proper atmosphere just by seeing him come on, I think. So, yeah, I can't get behind it. I can't get behind fans doing that. It doesn't make sense to me. I can't get behind fans who suddenly have written off, like, for example, Strauch's probably one of the main ones. Aronson and him have probably had the most grief I've seen, even though other players have. Strauch hasn't had a bad game probably since that Newcastle game. If there's been anything in between, it was like a couple of maybe iffy performances rather than anything dreadful. He's been really solid. Wasn't great here. So what? Move on. He's had a good season. It is what it is. And then the last thing I want to say on this, because I thought George Elliott made a really good point. I just listened to Not the Top 20 before this, and Oxford got relegated, his team, and he was reflecting on that, and he basically was saying how when you're the underdog team in the league, which is what we are and what Oxford were in the Championship, who you feel have built a decent squad for the level, which I think we have and you think we have, after just one Premier League transfer window in the summer as well, then you end up with some fans that are kind of realising that context and thinking, okay, this is actually pretty good what we've built, even if there's a couple of things I would have liked to improve it even further. And then you've got the other side of it that's like, no, I expect this Leeds team straight away to be up there, challenging, competing. This is what Leeds are. Leeds are a massive club. We should be straight up there. It's just not reality, is it? It's just not at all. Like, it really frustrates me. Like, you've got to contextualise things. If we finish 15th, after getting to an FA Cup semi-final, overall, the club as a whole, players, staff, manager, recruitment, all of that have had a marvellous season, like a really, really strong season. So that's where I'm happy. Does that mean that it excuses us against all the big teams, though, we don't perform well? No, because I think the way we've built the team, we've built it to be able to compete physically, athletically, and from a tactical point of view, if we can't match them player for player, that's fine. And they've had deficiencies in build-up there, that's fine. Bypass that. Do play to the strengths of the squad. Play to the energetic midfielders that can, counter-press and win second balls off Calvert-Lewin. Play to that. But for me, there's like... Sorry, I'm talking a lot here. This is my last point. We have a core next season to really, really build on, in my opinion, with Goodmanson, Biol, at least one of Strauch or Roden, maybe not both. Ampadu, Stack, Calvert-Lewin and all of those players, like that's a core you really want to build around. And that is a good Premier League core, in my opinion, for a team that is only going to be in its second season. And that's the context that matters to me. Sorry, spoken a lot there, but that's how I feel. Do you actually have a man of the match? You said Okafor, maybe. I thought Stack played well when he came on. I thought he actually showed a bit. His set pieces weren't amazing, but he showed a bit of fight and a bit of grit and obviously had that shot. Tried to like take responsibility essentially with the ball. So did Joe Roden actually a little bit. So those two probably did do quite well, but
yeah,
really that many.
Those two and Okafor were the only ones I'd say, but I wouldn't want to pick a man of the match in this one because I think
that's fine.
More players was average.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I thought Ampadu was okay. He's probably the one that did 90 minutes that probably did the best, and even that was a really not a high bar. Anything else before we move on?
No, we can move on to Burnley.
What we all want to do. Move on to Burnley.